My name is Carlo, and at 32 years old I've built a successful career as a software engineer with a salary that most would envy. For as long as I can remember, I've been the responsible one, the family bank, the endless safety net. Year after year I've financially supported my parents, sister, and brother without complaint. That is, until they decided to cancel my train ticket as a prank and left me stranded before the most important presentation of my career. This time, something in me finally snapped. Before I get into my story, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Hit that like button, and subscribe if you want to see more stories about setting boundaries that were long overdue. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in Chicago where things were tight but manageable. My parents, Frank and Marie, worked hard, but always seemed to be one emergency away from financial disaster. Despite their money struggles, they were loving in their own way. My older sister, Cassandra, now 35, was the dramatic one of the family, always in some kind of crisis that needed immediate attention and inevitably funding. My younger brother, Marco, 28, was the family's eternal free spirit, which was just a nicer way of saying he couldn't hold down a job for more than a few months at a time. Even as a kid, I was different. While my siblings were spending their allowance immediately on candy and toys, I was saving mine. When they were sleeping in on weekends, I was up early delivering newspapers. It wasn't that I was inherently better. I just had this innate sense of responsibility that seemed to be missing from the rest of my family. By 14, I had saved enough to buy my own computer, which became my gateway to the world of programming. The signs were there from early on that my family saw me differently. When Cassandra needed money for a school trip, my parents would ask if I could chip in from my savings. When Marco broke something, I was expected to help pay for the replacement since you have so much money saved up. It started small, but the pattern was established early. Carlo will handle it. Throughout high school, I juggled multiple part-time jobs. I worked at the local grocery store stacking shelves, mowed lawns on weekends, and tutored younger kids in math and science. Every dollar I earned went toward my college fund. Meanwhile, Cassandra dropped out of community college twice, and Marco barely graduated high school, spending most of his time playing video games and hanging out with friends. The hard work paid off when I earned a scholarship to study computer science at a good university. The scholarship covered tuition, but I still worked nearly full-time to pay for books, housing, and food. Those 4 years were a blur of classes, work, studying, and very little sleep. I graduated with honors and minimal debt, landing my first job at a promising tech startup almost immediately. That first job paid well enough, but the hours were brutal. I was coding 14 to 16 hours a day, learning everything I could, and building my reputation. Within 3 years, I had enough experience to move to a more prestigious company, with better hours and significantly better pay. By 28, I was earning a 6-figure salary, and had paid off my student loans, built an emergency fund, and was investing wisely for my future. It should have been a time to enjoy the fruits of my labor. Instead, it marked the beginning of becoming the family bank. It started with my dad's layoff. He'd worked at the same manufacturing company for 20 years when they downsized and let him go with a severance package that wouldn't last 6 months. My parents had very little saved, and were 3 years away from paying off their mortgage. The panic in my mom's voice when she called me about it was something I couldn't ignore. So I stepped in, offering to cover their mortgage payments until Dad found a new job. 6 months turned into a year turned into 2. Dad eventually found work, but at significantly lower pay, and my mortgage contributions became an expected part of their monthly budget. They never asked if I wanted to stop. It was just assumed I would continue. Then came Cassandra's divorce. She had married young to a guy named Tyler who worked in construction. They had 2 kids quickly, and Cassandra never went back to work after the first was born. When Tyler left her for his coworker, Cassandra was devastated and completely unprepared to support herself and the children. Once again, I stepped in, paying for her car, helping with childcare costs, and covering her rent when she came up short, which was most months. Marco's financial needs were the most consistent drain. He bounced from job to job: barista, rideshare driver, retail, telemarketing, never lasting more than a few months at any of them. He always had big dreams and schemes that were going to make him rich, but somehow they never materialized. What did materialize were his constant requests for rent money, utility payments, and loans that we all knew would never be repaid. Beyond these major expenses, there were countless smaller ones. Medical bills when my mom needed surgery and their insurance didn't cover everything. Home repairs when my parents' water heater exploded. New laptops for my niece and nephew for school. Family vacations that I would largely fund because we all deserve a break, even though I worked the most hours by far. The worst part wasn't even the money. It was their attitude toward my help. What started as genuine gratitude quickly evolved into expectation, then entitlement. My parents would joke about my deep pockets at family gatherings. Cassandra would make comments about how easy I had it, completely ignoring the years of sacrifice and hard work that got me where I was. Marco would roll his eyes whenever I mentioned work, calling me a corporate drone while living off the benefits of my corporate job. If I ever hesitated before agreeing to yet another financial request, the guilt trips would begin. Family helps family, my mom would say. Remember when we bought you that graphing calculator for algebra? My dad would remind me, referring to a $70 purchase from nearly 20 years ago that had apparently not yet been repaid, despite the thousands I'd given them. You don't even have kids to support, Cassandra would point out, as if I was selfishly hoarding resources. The resentment grew slowly but steadily. It wasn't just about the money. It was about being taken for granted. It was about being the butt of family jokes for being responsible and hard-working. It was about being called boring and too serious when I couldn't join a last-minute family gathering because I had work commitments. It was about my family making fun of my work ethic while simultaneously depending on the fruits of that same work ethic to bail them out of their financial messes. I tried to address it a few times. I sat my parents down and explained that I couldn't be their retirement plan. I had a careful conversation with Cassandra about helping her create a budget and find better-paying work. I even offered to help Marco with his resume and connect him with recruiters I knew. These conversations were invariably met with defensiveness accusations that I thought I was better than everyone and renewed guilt about how I was abandoning the family when they needed me. Rather than face the conflict, I would back down, write another check, and swallow my frustration. By the time I turned 32, I was sending over $4,000 a month to various family members, nearly a third of my take-home pay. My own financial goals, like buying a home or taking a dream vacation, were constantly delayed to cover someone else's emergency. I was trapped in a cycle of my own making, and I couldn't see a way out without being the bad guy who turned his back on family. Little did I know the way out would present itself in the form of a cruel prank that would change everything. The opportunity came unexpectedly. My team had been working on a revolutionary customer engagement platform, and our project had caught the attention of several major international clients. Our biggest potential client, a Fortune 500 company based in Boston, requested an in-person presentation from the lead developer, which was me. This wasn't just any presentation. It was potentially a $30 million contract that would transform our company and more personally secure my path to a senior leadership position. Carlo, this is your shot, my boss. Patricia told me, her normally stoic expression giving way to a rare smile. Land this client, and the director of engineering position is practically yours. The board is watching this one closely. The promotion would mean a 40% salary increase, stock options, and the kind of career advancement that I had been working toward for years. It was the opportunity I had sacrificed countless weekends and holidays for the validation of all those late nights and early mornings. I threw myself into preparations immediately. The presentation needed to be perfect, technically impressive enough to satisfy their engineering team, but accessible enough for their executives to understand the value proposition. I spent weeks refining the demo, anticipating possible questions, and creating contingency plans for any technical issues that might arise. The logistics required equal attention to detail. The meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. on a Tuesday in Boston, which meant traveling the day before. I decided to take the train rather than fly. I've always found trains more reliable and comfortable for working, and the direct route from Chicago to Boston would give me 5 solid hours to review my materials and mentally prepare. I booked my first-class train ticket 3 weeks in advance, securing a quiet car seat with a table and power outlet. I reserved a room at the Marriott directly across from their corporate headquarters, Expensive, but worth it to ensure I'd be fresh and punctual. I even had my best suit professionally cleaned and pressed, bought a new tie, and had my shoes polished to perfection. Every detail was accounted for, every contingency planned for. This was too important to leave anything to chance. The week before the trip, we had our regular Sunday family dinner at my parents' house. These dinners had become something of a tradition over the years, a time when all of us would gather, eat my mom's lasagna, and catch up on each other's lives. Typically, these dinners involved everyone else talking about their problems, while I listened sympathetically, usually ending with someone mentioning a financial need that I would quietly address later. This time, however, I was genuinely excited to share my news. "I've got a big presentation in Boston next Monday," I announced as we sat around the dinner table. "It's for a huge potential client. If it goes well, I'm in line for a major promotion." Boston Fancy Marco smirked, shoveling another forkful of lasagna into his mouth. "Going to wear your special tie for the other computer nerds." I ignored the jab. "It's a really big deal. The company I'm presenting to is massive, and they're looking to invest millions in our platform." My mom patted my hand. "That's wonderful, honey. We're proud of you." "Must be nice," Cassandra sighed, "flying around the country for business, while some of us are stuck working local jobs." She was currently working part-time as a receptionist, a job I had helped her get through a friend. "Actually, I'm taking the train," I corrected. "It's more reliable and I can work during the journey." "The train," my dad chuckled. "Very old school of you, son. I thought you tech guys were all about efficiency." "It is efficient for me," I explained. "No airport security lines, no cramped seats, no turbulence. Just 5 uninterrupted hours to finalize my presentation." "Whatever you say, Mr. Big Shot," Marco laughed. "Some of us would kill for a fancy train ride to anywhere." The conversation moved on, but not before I noticed a strange look pass between my siblings. At the time, I dismissed it as their usual slight resentment of my career success. I was used to the little digs and backhanded compliments. They seemed supportive enough, asking a few questions about the presentation and offering generic well wishes. The night before my departure, I was a bundle of nervous energy. I triple-checked my presentation materials, making sure everything was backed up in multiple locations. I confirmed my train ticket and hotel reservation. I packed my bag meticulously, including backup chargers for all my devices and an extra dress shirt just in case. I called Patricia for a final review of the key points we wanted to emphasize. "You've got this, Carlo," she reassured me. "Just be yourself, show them what the platform can do, and answer their questions honestly. They'll be impressed." After the call, I laid out my clothes for the morning, set 3 separate alarms on different devices, and sent a quick text to my family group chat, "Heading to Boston tomorrow for the big presentation. Wish me luck." The responses came quickly. "Knock 'em dead, bro," from Marco. "Good luck from my mom. Don't forget to bring us back souvenirs from your fancy business trip," from Cassandra. "Make us proud, son," from my dad. I went to bed early, determined to be well rested for the important day ahead. Despite my nervousness, I managed to fall asleep, quickly confident in my preparations and excited about the opportunity. The morning of the trip, I woke before my first alarm even sounded. I felt surprisingly calm and focused, running through mental checklists as I showered and dressed. My Uber arrived precisely on time at 5:30 in the morning, and the driver was pleasantly quiet, allowing me to review some notes on my phone during the ride. I arrived at the train station a full hour before departure, wanting to eliminate any possibility of rushing or stress. The station was already busy with early morning commuters, but not overwhelmingly crowded. I bought a coffee from the station cafe and found a seat near the departure boards, occasionally glancing up to check for any updates on my train. As I sat there reviewing my presentation one last time, I felt a rare sense of pride. This moment was the culmination of years of hard work and sacrifice. I was ready. Whatever technical questions they threw at me, whatever concerns they raised about implementation or scaling, I had the answers. This was my moment to shine. Little did I know my carefully laid plans were already derailed, sabotaged by the very people who should have been supporting me. As the departure time grew closer, I packed up my laptop and moved toward the platform area. I glanced at the large electronic departure board scanning for my train number. Strangely, I didn't see it listed among the departures. I checked the time on my phone, still 30 minutes before scheduled departure, and figured it might not be posted yet. I waited another 10 minutes, growing slightly anxious as other trains appeared on the board but not mine. Finally, I approached the customer service desk, where a middle-aged woman with a kind face was helping another passenger. When it was my turn, I stepped forward confidently. "Good morning. I'm looking for information on the 7:15 train to Boston. It's not showing up on the departure board." The woman typed something into her computer, her expression neutral. After a moment, she looked up with a slight frown. "Can I see your ticket and ID, sir?" I pulled up the electronic ticket on my phone and handed her my driver's license. She studied both, typing something else into her system. Her frown deepened. "Sir, I'm showing that your reservation was canceled last night." My stomach dropped. "That's impossible. I didn't cancel anything." She turned her monitor slightly so I could see the screen. "The system shows the cancellation was processed at 11:45 p.m. last night. The cancellation was done online through your account." My mind raced. I hadn't been on the booking site last night. I'd been asleep by 10:30 preparing for today. "There must be some mistake," I insisted, trying to keep my voice calm. "I absolutely did not cancel this ticket. Is there any way to reinstate it?" She shook her head apologetically. "I'm sorry, sir. The train is fully booked now. Once a cancellation is processed, those seats become available to other customers." Panic began to rise in my chest. "Are there any other trains to Boston today? I have an extremely important meeting tomorrow morning." More typing. Another head shake. "The next available train with seats isn't until tomorrow afternoon. We've had higher than usual bookings because of the technology conference in Boston this week." Of course. The very conference that had brought my potential clients to Boston was now ensuring I couldn't get there in time. What about standby? Or even just a coach seat instead of first class? I was growing desperate. "I can put you on the standby list, but honestly, sir, it's extremely unlikely. As for coach, those seats were the first to sell out." My mind was spinning. How could this be happening? I needed to be in Boston tonight. The presentation couldn't be rescheduled. These executives had packed schedules and had specifically made time for our presentation. I stepped away from the counter, pulling out my phone to call the airline. Maybe I could still get a flight. But as I suspected, the same conference had filled most flights, and the few remaining seats were priced at over $3,000 one way, and would still get me in too late to properly prepare. I called the train company's customer service number, hoping they might have more options than the station agent. After 20 minutes on hold, I got the same information. My ticket had definitely been canceled the night before through my account, and there were no available seats on any train that would get me to Boston in time. In desperation, I looked into car rentals, buses, even shared ride services. Everything would take too long or was unavailable on such short notice. The reality was sinking in. I wasn't going to make it to Boston in time. With shaking hands, I called Patricia. "Carlo, shouldn't you be on the train?" she answered. "Patricia, we have a problem." I explained the situation as calmly as I could. "Someone canceled my train ticket last night. I'm trying to find another way to get to Boston, but nothing will get me there in time for the meeting." The silence on the other end spoke volumes. "Carlo, this is not acceptable," she finally said, her voice tight. "These people have specifically requested you because of your technical expertise. They've allocated time in their schedule for this presentation." I know, I said, running a hand through my hair. "Can we do it virtually? I can present from here via video conference." Another pause. "That's not ideal. They wanted an in-person demonstration, but I'll reach out and see if they'll accommodate the change. In the meantime, keep trying to find a way to get there." As soon as we hung up, my phone buzzed with a notification from our family group chat. It was a video message. Thinking it might be good luck, wishes for my presentation, I opened it. What I saw made my blood run cold. The video showed my family, Mom, Dad, Cassandra, and Marco, gathered in our parents' living room, all of them laughing hysterically. The camera was focused on Cassandra, who was holding her phone and looking extremely pleased with herself. "I did it," she announced to the camera, barely containing her laughter. I logged into Carlo's train account with his saved password and canceled his ticket. His face is going to be priceless when he gets to the station tomorrow and finds out. The camera panned to Marco, who was doubled over with laughter. Now the workaholic can take a day off. Maybe he'll learn not to be so uptight. My parents were in the background chuckling along, my father wiping tears of mirth from his eyes. He's always so serious about his precious job, Cassandra continued. This will teach him to lighten up a bit. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. They had done this. My own family had deliberately sabotaged the most important presentation of my career, as a prank. I immediately called Cassandra. She answered on the third ring, still giggling. Hey, Mr. Important businessman, surprised. Cassandra, what have you done? My voice was deadly quiet. Do you have any idea what you've done? Oh, come on, she laughed. It's just a joke. You can book another train. Your company can afford it. There are no other trains, I nearly shouted, causing several nearby passengers to turn and stare. I lowered my voice. Everything is booked because of a conference. I'm going to miss a $30 million presentation. I'm going to lose a promotion. Well, geez, don't be so dramatic, she scoffed. It's not the end of the world. You take everything so seriously. I hung up and tried Marco, then my parents. Each conversation was the same. Initial amusement followed by dismissive responses when I explained the severity of the situation. None of them seemed to grasp what they had done. Or worse, they didn't care. My phone rang. It was Patricia again. I answered, dreading the conversation. The clients are not happy, she said without preamble. They've agreed to a video conference, but they've made it clear they're disappointed. Carlo, what happened? This isn't like you. I considered telling her the truth, that my family had sabotaged me as a joke, but it sounded so ridiculous, so unprofessional, that I couldn't bring myself to say it. What kind of adult allows their family to access their accounts anyway? It was a misunderstanding with the booking, I said weakly. I take full responsibility. Well, get to the office as quickly as you can. We'll set up the video conference from the main boardroom. They've moved us to the end of their day, which gives us a few hours to prepare. I grabbed a taxi back to the office, my mind still reeling from what had happened. By the time I arrived, the news of my booking error had spread. Colleagues who had wished me luck the day before now gave me questioning looks. My team members seemed nervous, knowing how much was riding on this presentation. The video conference was a disaster from the start. Technical difficulties meant the demo lagged and froze at crucial moments. Without being in the room, I couldn't read the client's body language or engage them personally. Their questions came across as more confrontational than curious. By the end, it was clear we had lost our advantage. Patricia stepped in, trying to salvage the situation, but the damage was done. The clients thanked us politely, but mentioned they were also considering 2 other vendors. We all knew what that meant. We were no longer the frontrunners. As the call ended and the screen went black, the room fell silent. My team filed out quietly, leaving just Patricia and me. I don't understand what happened, Carlo, she said, disappointment evident in her voice. You're usually so meticulous about these things. I nodded, unable to explain without sounding pathetic. I'm sorry, Patricia. I let everyone down. She sighed. The Jenkins project is being reassigned to David's team. I think it's for the best, considering this situation. We'll talk more tomorrow about next steps. I sat alone in the boardroom for a long time after she left, staring at my now useless presentation materials. Years of hard work, countless late nights, all the sacrifices I had made, undermined in an instant by the people who were supposed to care about me the most. And the worst part, they thought it was funny. The next few days at the office were excruciating. Word travels fast in a company our size, and by the end of the week, everyone seemed to know about my massive screw-up. The details were fuzzy in the rumor mill. Some people heard I'd missed my train, others thought I'd gotten the dates mixed up. But the result was the same. Carlo dropped the ball on a major presentation. The most painful part was returning to my desk to find my belongings had been moved. Not to a new office as I had hoped with the promotion, but to a smaller desk in a different area of the floor. David, who had been assigned the Jenkins project in my place, was now sitting at my old desk closer to Patricia and the rest of the leadership team. The symbolic demotion was clear, even if my title and salary remained the same. Colleagues who used to seek out my advice now directed their questions to David. I was excluded from strategic meetings I would have normally attended. Patricia was professional but distant, our previously warm rapport replaced by brief task-focused interactions. I overheard snippets of conversation in the break room one day that cut especially deep. "I don't get it," one developer was saying. "Carlo was always so reliable." "I heard he just didn't show up for the train," another replied. "Maybe he's burnt out or something." Well, whatever it is, I'm not surprised. David got the Jenkins project. You can't miss presentations with clients that size and expect to keep leading projects. I slipped out before they noticed me, my coffee forgotten on the counter. That Sunday, I reluctantly went to the regular family dinner, still seething but hoping for at least some recognition of the damage they'd caused. Instead, I walked into a house full of laughter and found my prank was now a favorite family story. You should have seen his face when we told him, Marco was saying, as I walked in, apparently recounting the story to our cousin Amy, who was visiting. The room went quiet when they saw me, but only for a moment before my father chuckled. "There's the man of the hour. How was Boston?" I stared at him in disbelief. "I didn't go to Boston, Dad, as you all know very well." My mother bustled over, giving me a hug I didn't return. "Oh, honey, don't be like that. It was just a bit of fun." "A bit of fun," I repeated slowly. "Do you have any idea what happened because of your bit of fun?" I explained in painstaking detail exactly what their prank had cost me. The failed presentation, the lost client, the reassigned project, the promotion that was now given to someone else, and the damage to my professional reputation that would take months, if not years, to repair. As I spoke, their expressions changed from amusement to confusion, but not to the remorse or horror I had expected. "Well, how were we supposed to know all that would happen?" Cassandra said defensively. "It's not our fault your company has no sense of humor." "Yeah, bro," Marco added. "Sounds like you're working for a bunch of stuck-up suits who can't handle a little schedule change." "A little schedule change?" I was incredulous. "You sabotaged a $30 million presentation." "Don't you think you're overreacting a little?" my father cut in. "So you missed one meeting. There will be others." "That's not how it works, Dad. Do you think clients like that grow on trees? Do you think my reputation doesn't matter in my industry?" My mother reached for my arm. "Carlo, honey, you need to learn to laugh a little. Life's too short to be so serious all the time." I pulled away from her touch. "This is my career we're talking about, my future, the thing that pays for." I stopped myself before finishing with everything for all of you. But they knew what I meant. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. "So that's it," Cassandra finally said. "You're mad because your precious money might be affected." "No, I'm mad because the people who are supposed to love me deliberately hurt me and don't even care," I shot back. More defensive responses followed. I was too uptight. I couldn't take a joke. I was making a mountain out of a molehill. Not once did anyone offer a genuine apology or acknowledge the real harm they had caused. I left early, ignoring their calls to stay for dessert, my mom's special tiramisu that I usually loved. The drive home was a blur of anger and hurt, but beneath those emotions was something else taking shape: resolution. For weeks after, I went through the motions at work, trying to rebuild my reputation, one small success at a time. I arrived earlier than everyone else, stayed later, took on additional responsibilities without complaint. Slowly, the whispers died down. Patricia began to include me in meetings again. A few colleagues started coming to me with questions once more. But at night, alone in my apartment, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the video of my family laughing at what they'd done to me. I thought about all the times I'd canceled my own plans to help them, all the financial sacrifices I'd made for their benefit, all the support I'd given with little acknowledgement or reciprocation. I thought about Cassandra's dismissive "your precious money" comment, even as she lived in an apartment I helped pay for, drove a car I'd financed, and raised children whose expenses I regularly covered. I thought about Marco's corporate drone insults while he waited for my direct deposit to cover his rent each month. I thought about my parents' guilt trips about family loyalty even as they sabotaged one of the most important days of my professional life. One night around 3 in the morning, staring at my ceiling in the dark, a realization crystallized. They would never change as long as there were no consequences. They would continue to take and take, to disrespect and dismiss, to exploit my generosity while mocking the work ethic that made that generosity possible. Something had to change, and since they wouldn't, it had to be me. The next family dinner was 2 weeks after the prank. Once again, the incident came up, now fully cemented as a hilarious family anecdote. As everyone laughed, I sat in silence watching them. My mother noticed my expression. "Carlo, are you still upset about that? It was weeks ago." I didn't answer directly. I just looked around at their faces. My family, who I loved despite everything, but who clearly didn't respect me or value what I contributed. "I need to head out early tonight," I said quietly, standing up before dessert was served. "But we haven't even had Mom's apple pie," Marco protested. "I have some things to take care of," I replied, and left without further explanation. Those things would change all of our lives forever. That night I sat down at my kitchen table with a notebook and began to take inventory of my financial entanglements with my family. The list was longer than I had realized. Monthly contribution to parents' mortgage, $850. Marco's rent, $1,200. Cassandra's car payment, $375. Cell phone, family plan for everyone, $220. Streaming services shared with family, $65. Health insurance contribution for parents, $490. Cassandra's children's after-school activities, $350. Regular loans to Marco, average per month, $300. Contributions to family vacation fund, $200. Miscellaneous emergency expenses, average $400. The total came to over $4,450 per month, more than most people's mortgage payments. And this didn't include the countless gifts, dinners out, and one-time expenses I covered throughout the year. I also went through old emails and text messages documenting loans that had never been repaid. The total was staggering. Over $27,000 to various family members over the past 5 years, not a penny of which had been returned despite multiple promises. I created a spreadsheet detailing every regular payment, when it was due, which accounts it came from, and who it was for. I needed to understand exactly what I was dealing with before making any changes. The next day I took a personal day from work and scheduled appointments with my financial advisor and a lawyer. I needed to understand my options and any potential legal implications. My financial advisor, Janet, was surprised by the extent of my financial support to my family. "Carlo, this is significantly impacting your own financial goals," she pointed out. "At this rate, you're delaying your own home purchase by years, not to mention your retirement savings." "I know," I admitted. "I just never added it all up before." "Well, now that you have, what do you want to do about it?" I took a deep breath. "I want to stop, all of it, but I need to know how to do it in a way that protects me legally and financially." She nodded, understanding immediately. "Let's create a withdrawal plan. Some of these can be stopped immediately. Others might need some notice or transition period." Together, we created a timeline for extracting myself from each financial obligation. Some were simple. Canceling streaming services could be done immediately. Others were more complex. I needed to give my parents notice about the mortgage payments, and Marco's lease had my name on it as a guarantor. The meeting with the lawyer Benjamin was equally enlightening. "In most cases, you have no legal obligation to continue these payments," he assured me. "The exceptions are anything where you've signed a contract, like the lease guarantee for your brother." "How do I handle that?" I asked. "You can't remove yourself until the lease ends or is modified, but you can certainly stop making the payments as long as you're prepared for the possibility that the landlord might come after you if your brother defaults." "And the loans?" Benjamin smiled wryly. "Were there any formal loan agreements signed? Promissory notes, payment schedules?" "No, nothing like that." "Then legally it becomes very difficult to prove these were loans rather than gifts. You could pursue it, but honestly, the cost of legal action would likely exceed the amount you'd recover." I nodded, having expected as much. I'm not looking to get the money back. I just want to make sure I'm not legally obligated to continue any of this support. In that case, you're on solid ground. Just document everything clearly in case there's any dispute later. Armed with this information, I spent the next week methodically executing my plan. First, I opened new bank accounts at a different bank from the one my family knew about. I transferred the majority of my funds, leaving only enough in the old accounts to cover immediate expenses. Next, I canceled all automatic transfers to family members' accounts effective immediately. This included the monthly deposits to my parents' account for the mortgage and the regular payments to Marco's landlord. I removed my credit card from all shared accounts and services, including the family cell phone plan, various streaming services, and the online shopping accounts my sister used regularly. I sent emails to my family members documenting the changes. These weren't emotional or accusatory, just simple statements of fact. To my parents, effective immediately, I will no longer be contributing to the mortgage payments. Please make arrangements accordingly. To Cassandra, I've removed my card from your car payment account. The next payment is due on the 15th. To Marco, I will no longer be covering your rent starting next month. Your lease renewal is coming up in 60 days. I changed all my passwords, email banking, social media, everything. I realized that if Cassandra had my train account password, she likely had access to other accounts as well. I enabled two-factor authentication on everything that offered it. I contacted Marco's landlord, explaining that I would not be renewing as a lease guarantor when the current term expired. I made it clear that while I would honor my current obligation, I wanted formal confirmation when I was released from the guarantee. I canceled the family vacation I had promised to pay for forfeiting the deposit but saving thousands in future expenses. Finally, I set up automatic replies to financial requests. If anyone texted or emailed asking for money, they would receive a standard response. I'm currently revising my budget and am not able to provide financial assistance at this time. I took one additional step that wasn't strictly necessary, but felt important symbolically. I muted the family group chat. I didn't leave it entirely. I just turned off notifications so I wouldn't be drawn into their immediate reactions. With everything in place, I took a week off work. Not to go anywhere, but to give myself space to process what I had done and prepare for the fallout. I knew it would be significant. I knew they would be angry, hurt, and confused. I knew they would try to guilt me, shame me, and pressure me into changing my mind. I also knew I couldn't give in this time. This wasn't a negotiation or a temporary measure. This was a complete reset of my relationship with my family, one that was long overdue. As I sat in my apartment that first night with all the changes enacted, but before any of my family had discovered them, I felt a strange mix of emotions. There was guilt, of course. There was fear about how they would react. There was sadness about the relationships that might be damaged. But there was also a profound sense of relief. For the first time in years, I felt like I was taking control of my own life. I was standing up for myself, setting boundaries that should have been set long ago. Whatever came next, I knew this was the right decision, not just for my financial health, but for my self-respect and dignity. The storm was coming, but for now there was calm. And in that calm, I found something I hadn't felt in a very long time: peace. The first signs of the coming storm appeared within 24 hours. My phone started buzzing with text messages early the next morning. From Cassandra: "Hey, weird question, but my car payment got declined. Your card isn't working." From Marco: "Dude, Netflix isn't working. Did you change the password?" From Mom: "Carlo, honey, there seems to be a problem with the bank transfer. Can you check on it?" I didn't respond to any of them immediately. I had anticipated these messages and was prepared for them. This was only the beginning. By the afternoon, the tone of the messages had changed. From Cassandra: "Carlo, seriously, what's going on with the car payment? I called the bank, and they said your card was removed from the account." From Marco: "What the fuck, man? Did you seriously cut off the cell phone plan? My phone's only working on Wi-Fi now." From Mom: "Carlo, please call us. We're worried about you. There seems to be some mistake with all the accounts." Still, I maintained my silence. I needed them to understand this wasn't a mistake or a temporary glitch. This was a deliberate choice. By evening, my phone was ringing constantly. I let all calls go to voicemail, listening to them later when I felt emotionally prepared. Carlo, this is your mother. What is going on? Your father and I just got a notice from the bank about the mortgage payment. Call us immediately. Bro, what the hell? My landlord just called and said you contacted him about the lease. Are you trying to get me evicted? Call me back now. This is Cassandra. I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but I have 2 kids who need to eat and get to school. My car is essential. Fix this right now. The next day, the doorbell rang. I checked the security camera to see Marco standing there looking angry. I didn't answer. An hour later, it was Cassandra. Again, I didn't respond. Later that evening, my parents showed up looking worried, rather than angry. It was harder to ignore them, but I reminded myself of the video of them laughing at my misfortune and held firm. 3 days after implementing my changes, I received a text from my father that took a different approach. Son, we're having an emergency family meeting tomorrow night at 6. Whatever's going on, we need to discuss it as a family. Please be there. We love you. This was it. The confrontation. I knew I had to attend. Avoiding them forever wasn't the point. Setting boundaries was. I needed to explain my decision face to face and stand firm against the emotional manipulation I knew would come. I arrived at my parents' house exactly at 6, bracing myself as I walked through the door. The atmosphere was tense. Everyone was already there sitting in the living room. Mom looked like she'd been crying. Dad looked stern and worried. Cassandra was visibly angry while Marco just looked confused. Carlo, what the hell is going on? Cassandra demanded before I'd even sat down. Let him sit. First, my mother said, her voice strained. Carlo, honey, we're all very concerned. What's happening? Are you in some kind of trouble? I sat down calmly, looking at each of them in turn. I'm not in trouble. I've simply made a decision to stop providing financial support to all of you. The silence that followed was deafening. Then everyone started talking at once. What do you mean, stop providing support? My father sputtered. You can't just cut us off without warning, Cassandra shouted. Is this about that stupid train thing? Get over it already? Marco added. I held up my hand. I'll explain everything, but I need you all to listen without interrupting. Can you do that? Reluctantly, they nodded. For years I've been supporting all of you financially. I've paid portions of the mortgage, Marco's rent, Cassandra's car phone bills, streaming services, vacations, and countless emergency expenses. In total, I've been giving this family over $4,000 every month. Their eyes widened at the figure, but I continued before they could interject. I did this willingly because I care about you. But over time, something changed. My support wasn't appreciated. It was expected. My work ethic, which enables me to provide this support, became something you mock rather than respect. I turned to look at each of my siblings. You call me boring, uptight, a corporate drone. You make fun of my commitment to my job, even as you benefit from the income it provides. I then looked at my parents. And you encourage this behavior. You laugh along. You've never once stepped in to say, that's enough, or show some gratitude. But honey, my mother interjected, we're just teasing. That's what families do. No, Mom. Teasing is gentle and affectionate. What happened with my train ticket wasn't teasing, it was sabotage. And your reaction to it showed me exactly how little you all value me and my career. I pulled out my phone and played the video they had sent me, the one showing them laughing about canceling my ticket. The sound of their laughter filled the room, now sounding hollow and cruel in this context. Do you know what happened because of this prank? I asked quietly when the video ended. I lost a major client. I lost a promotion I've been working toward for years. My professional reputation was damaged, and not one of you has sincerely apologized or even acknowledged the harm you caused. We didn't know it would be such a big deal, Cassandra protested weakly. That's just it. You didn't care enough to ask or consider the consequences. You saw me as the boring, responsible one who would just absorb whatever you did and continue providing for everyone. I took a deep breath. Well, that stops now. I've canceled all automatic payments. I've removed my credit cards from your accounts. I've notified Marco's landlord that I won't be renewing as a guarantor. These changes are permanent. The explosion I expected came immediately. You can't do this to us, Cassandra shouted. I have children to support. You know I can't afford my rent on what I make, Marco yelled. Son, your mother and I might lose the house, my father said gravely. I remained calm. Cassandra, you have a job. It might not pay as much as you'd like, but many single parents make it work with less. Marco, you're 28 years old and perfectly capable of working full-time instead of finding yourself on my dime. And Dad, you and Mom have options. You can refinance, downsize, or Mom could return to work part-time. So that's it, you're just cutting us off completely, my mother asked tearfully. Financially, yes. I'm still your son and their brother. I still want to be part of this family. But from now on, our relationship won't be based on my checkbook. It will be based on mutual respect and genuine care. This is about money then, Cassandra said bitterly. Your precious money is more important than your family. I stood up, maintaining my composure even as I felt my heart racing. No, Cassandra. This is about respect. Money is just the most visible symptom of a deeper problem. When you canceled my train ticket and laughed about it, you showed me exactly how little you respect me, my time, my career, and my generosity. Why would I continue to support people who think so little of me? I headed for the door, pausing before I left. I love all of you, but I won't be taken advantage of anymore. The decision is final. I hope eventually we can build a healthier relationship, but that's up to all of you now. As I closed the door behind me, I could hear the chaos erupting, Cassandra's angry accusations, Marco's confused protests, my mother's sobs. It was painful, but I felt a strange sense of lightness as I walked to my car. For the first time in years, I had stood up for myself. The weeks that followed were difficult. The barrage of messages continued. Angry at first, then pleading, then manipulative. My mother left tearful voicemails about how they might lose their home. Cassandra sent photos of my niece and nephew with captions like, "Guess who won't get new school clothes this year?" Marco alternated between rage, "You've always thought you were better than everyone," and pathetic attempts to win. Sympathy, "I might be homeless next month. Hope you're happy." I didn't respond to any of it. I had said everything I needed to say at the family meeting. About a month after I cut off financial support, I began to hear about the ripple effects through family, friends, and relatives. Marco had finally gotten a full-time job at a marketing firm. Apparently, the threat of actual homelessness was a powerful motivator. My parents had met with a financial advisor and were refinancing their mortgage and considering selling their vacation timeshare. Cassandra had listed her expensive car for sale and was looking for something more modest. They were adapting. They were finding solutions. They were in fact perfectly capable of supporting themselves when they had to. The hardest part for me was the guilt. Despite knowing I had done the right thing, I still lay awake some nights wondering if I had been too harsh, too sudden, too uncompromising. I questioned whether I should have offered a more gradual transition or kept supporting my niece and nephew while cutting off the adults. I started seeing a therapist to work through these feelings. Dr. Thompson helped me understand that my guilt was programmed into me through years of emotional manipulation. Your family trained you to feel responsible for their well-being, she explained. That programming doesn't disappear overnight just because you've recognized it's unhealthy. She was right. I had been conditioned to put everyone else's needs before my own, to equate saying no with being selfish or uncaring. Breaking that conditioning was painful but necessary. Surprisingly, it was my colleagues who provided the most unexpected support during this time. As I refocused my energy on work, my performance improved dramatically. I was more present, more creative, and more assertive in meetings. Patricia noticed the change. "Whatever's going on in your personal life," she told me, "after I successfully led a challenging project, it seems to have lit a fire under you. This is the Carlo I always knew was there." For the first time in years, I was putting myself first. My career, my goals, my well-being. And rather than making me selfish, it was making me more effective and authentic in all areas of my life. The family drama wasn't over, but as the months passed, I grew stronger in my resolve and more confident in my decision. This wasn't about punishing them. It was about finally valuing myself enough to demand the respect I deserved. And somewhere deep down, I hoped that by forcing them to stand on their own feet, I might actually be helping them become stronger, more independent people. Perhaps someday we could build relationships based on genuine love and respect, rather than financial dependency and obligation. That hope, small as it was, helped me sleep a little better at night. 6 months passed before I attended another family dinner. It wasn't that I was avoiding them entirely. I had brief civil interactions with individual family members during that time, but I needed space, and they needed time to adjust to their new financial reality. When I finally returned to Sunday dinner, the atmosphere was noticeably different. The house was the same, but there were small changes. Some of the more expensive decorations were gone, replaced by simpler items. The meal was more modest, but still delicious. More striking were the changes in my family themselves. My father greeted me with a firm handshake and clear eyes, none of the evasive guilt I'd grown accustomed to seeing. My mother hugged me warmly, but didn't cling or tear up as I expected. Cassandra arrived in a used sedan, rather than her luxury SUV, and Marco actually showed up on time dressed professionally. Apparently he had to head to work for an evening shift after dinner. The conversation over dinner was stilted at first, everyone carefully avoiding any mention of money or the incident as they now referred to the train ticket prank. But as the meal progressed, something remarkable happened. They started asking me genuine questions about my work, my life, my interests. Not perfunctory questions designed to eventually steer the conversation toward a financial need, but authentic curiosity. "Your company was featured in that business magazine last month, wasn't it?" my father asked. "The article mentioned a new project you're heading." I nodded, surprised he'd noticed. "Yes, we're developing a platform for healthcare providers. It's challenging but rewarding work." "That sounds fascinating," my mother said, and seemed to genuinely mean it. "Is it similar to what you were working on before?" The conversation continued, with everyone contributing and listening. Marco mentioned his new job was demanding, but he was learning a lot. Cassandra talked about a promotion she was working toward at her office. My parents discussed their new budget and how they were considering downsizing now that they were getting older. Not once did anyone ask me for money or make a pointed reference to their financial struggles. Not once did anyone make a joke at my expense or call me uptight. After dinner, as I was helping clear the table, Marco approached me somewhat awkwardly. "Hey, I never properly apologized for the train thing," he said, looking genuinely uncomfortable. "It was a stupid, thoughtless prank, and I'm really sorry. I didn't understand how important it was." I was taken aback by his sincerity. "Thank you for saying that, Marco. It means a lot. The thing is," he continued, "I never had to face consequences before. You or Mom and Dad always bailed me out. When you stopped, well, it sucked at first. I was angry. But then I realized I actually can stand on my own 2 feet. He grinned ruefully. "Turns out I'm not completely useless after all." Similar conversations happened with Cassandra and my parents over the following weeks. None were easy or perfectly smooth, but each represented genuine progress. Cassandra admitted she'd been jealous of my success and had taken advantage of my generosity. My parents acknowledged they had enabled dependent behavior in all of us and were working to change that dynamic. The most surprising transformation was in myself. The therapy sessions with Dr. Thompson had helped me understand my own role in creating the unhealthy family dynamics. I had enabled their dependency just as much as they had exploited my support. By never setting boundaries, I had tacitly given permission for the disrespect and entitlement. "It's like the oxygen mask principle on airplanes," Dr. Thompson had explained. "You have to secure your own mask before helping others. By depleting yourself to support everyone else, you weren't actually helping them in the long run." She was right. By cutting off the financial support, I had forced everyone, including myself, to develop healthier patterns. Marco had discovered capabilities he never knew he had. Cassandra had learned to live within her means. My parents had faced their financial reality and made responsible decisions. And I had learned that saying no didn't make me a bad person or mean I didn't love my family. As the holidays approached, I worried that the old patterns might resurface. Financial pressures tend to increase during festive seasons, and I braced myself for requests or hints about gifts and contributions. Instead, my mother called to discuss a scaled-back holiday plan. "We're doing a Secret Santa this year," she explained. "One gift per person with a $50 limit. We thought it would be more meaningful to focus on being together rather than expensive presents." I was touched by this thoughtful approach, so different from previous years' excessive spending. "That sounds perfect, Mom." The holiday gathering was the warmest and most genuine family event I could remember. Without the undercurrent of financial tension and obligation, we actually enjoyed each other's company. We played board games, shared stories, and laughed, not at each other's expense, but together. At one point, Cassandra raised her glass in a toast. To Carlo, she said, meeting my eyes with unexpected warmth, for teaching us all a hard but necessary lesson. "To standing on our own feet," Marco added. "To family," my father concluded. "The real kind, based on love and respect, not obligation." I felt something shift within me at that moment, a release of the last remnants of guilt and doubt. This had never been about the money itself. It had been about respect, boundaries, and genuine care versus obligation and exploitation. My career, too, had rebounded impressively. The focus and energy I previously spent worrying about family financial issues was now channeled into my work. 6 months after the incident, I was offered the Director of Engineering position, the very promotion I had lost due to the missed presentation. "You've shown remarkable growth and leadership these past months," Patricia told me. "Whatever reset you did in your personal life has clearly translated to your professional performance." My new boundaries extended beyond family. I became more selective about my commitments, more assertive about my needs, and more confident in my worth, both professionally and personally. I started dating again after years of putting romance on the back burner, meeting a wonderful woman named Rachel, who valued my reliability without exploiting it. The most profound change, however, was internal. I no longer felt responsible for everyone else's happiness and financial security. I no longer equated being loved with being useful. I understood that true generosity comes from free choice, not obligation or guilt, and that helping others shouldn't come at the expense of my own well-being. One evening, about a year after I had cut off financial support to my family, I had dinner with just my father. It was the first time we'd spent one-on-one time together in years. "You know, Carlo," he said thoughtfully, "as we finished our meals, what you did was probably the best thing that could have happened to this family. It was painful, and I was angry at first, but you forced us all to grow up, including your mother and me." He paused, looking slightly embarrassed. "I wanted to blame you, to say you were being selfish, but the truth is we were the selfish ones. We took advantage of your generosity and didn't respect what it cost you, not just financially but emotionally." "Thanks, Dad," I said, genuinely moved. "That means a lot to hear." "I'm proud of you, son," he added. "Not because of your job or your success, but because you had the courage to do something difficult that ultimately helped everyone. That's real strength." As I drove home that night, I reflected on the journey of the past year. What had started as a painful breach, my family's thoughtless prank, and my subsequent financial withdrawal, had ultimately led to healing and growth for everyone involved. The relationships we now shared were more authentic, more balanced, and more meaningful than the financial dependent dynamics we had before. I realized that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for people isn't to solve their problems or cushion them from consequences, but to allow them to face challenges and discover their own strength. By respecting yourself enough to set boundaries, you actually give others the opportunity to become better versions of themselves. The silence after I canceled their financial support had indeed been priceless, not because it punished them, but because it created space for something more valuable to grow. In its place, genuine respect, authentic connection, and real family bonds based on love rather than obligation. So if you're watching this and finding yourself in a similar situation, constantly giving without receiving respect in return, ask yourself, are your acts of generosity truly helping those you love, or are they preventing growth? Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is to step back and let people find their own way. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with people you care about? Leave a comment below sharing your experience. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Remember, true love supports growth, even when that growth is uncomfortable. Thank you for listening, and I wish you the courage to create healthy boundaries in your own life.